Okay, so what we're going to be doing today, we are going to be doing a brief refresher on the theory of MOHO. We're going to be thinking about assessment and assessment choice, how, what should guide your thinking in terms of assessment choice. We're going to be looking at a few of the newer MOHO assessments that you might not be so familiar with. And we're going to be thinking about how we make sense of assessment information using case formulation, how we interpret it and summarize it. We're going to be thinking about intervention, some general principles about intervention from a MOHO perspective, but we're going to be putting a bit of a magnifying glass on motivational interventions. Common challenge, I think, across many of our client groups is motivation, and MOHO is very strong on motivation, can really help us to kind of think about how we engage and motivate our service users. Pretty much everything, 90% of what I'm going to be telling you is covered in the MOHO workbook that's available on the OT team site. So you probably no need to take loads of notes, but that's your call. And we are trying a couple of techie innovative things today. So we're going to be trying breakout groups, and we're going to be trying something called Jamboard, which is an online flip chart. So bear with us, bear with your facilitators in the breakout groups if things aren't super slick, and please bear with us with that. But we do have two members of the OT Geek Squad on hand to help me sort out some of the challenges. So we've got Joe Stagg and we've got Emma Pickup. The OT Geek Squad, if you don't know about it, these are impressive people. These are people that have got an enthusiasm for tech and geeky stuff, and they're really, we've got 3 of them at the moment. But if you've got tendencies in that direction, then do let me know, because we're really wanting to optimize our efficiency and innovation through tech. Okay, so I like why questions. Why questions are good. So why models, first of all? We kind of labor under this is, I guess, this assumption that we ought to be using a model, but why? First of all, evidence-based clinical reasoning. So every day you will be making lots of decisions about who to prioritize, how to assess an individual, what advice to give, and using a model just makes this process more robust. Secondly, a good model will help us connect theory with practice. So models usually give us assessment tools that can be used in practice. And by using a tried and tested assessment with an underpinning framework, you can be confident that you've covered everything and that you're in the best position possible to be able to help an individual. Quick rewind, I should have said, do use the chat if you've got any comments or questions. Again, we've got people monitoring the chat. I can't see the chat when I'm screen sharing, so we'll kind of try and create a bit of space at the end of each section for questions. But yeah, so do use the chat. Okay, next why question is why MOHO? Well, MOHO is the most evidence-based and most researched occupational therapy model. It also has an extensive battery of standardized assessment tools, most of which can be used as outcome measures to try and capture change and demonstrate clinical effectiveness. But thirdly, I think, and this is a real strength in mental health, I would say, it pays significant attention to the complex area of volition, because we know motivation and engagement are particularly critical issues in mental health. So, quick caveat, I'm always keen to stress this. A model is designed to guide, not dictate practice. It's a servant, it's not a master. It's a tool to enhance our understanding. We still need to engage our brains and think about how best to use the understanding that we gather from a model. So it always worries me when I kind of come across people that feel kind of duty bound, or that they kind of guilt driven to use MOHO or use assessments. That's really not the mindset. We don't want a tick box mentality. Just because you're being audited or you're being checked up on, that's not the mindset that we want to nurture. We want you to be convinced, hopefully, that using a model will actually help you do your job better. And if you've got reservations, then speak up and share those reservations. There'll be space to do that today. So single sentence definition of MOHO, it's a way of understanding how human occupation is motivated, how it's organized, how it's performed, and how it's influenced by the environment. So it helps us understand the whole process of doing. So MOHO argues that there are four main factors that influence what we do and how well we do it. First of all, volition, which in everyday speak is our motivation and confidence. Secondly, habituation, which is how we organize and structure our lives. Then we've got our performance, which is our kind of skills. And then we've got the environment, of course. This is my very dumbed down way of summarizing MOHO. As many of you will have seen this several times before. So for our smiling friend here to be able to produce successful occupation in terms of self-care, productivity and leisure, they will need adequate motivation and confidence, the volition. They'll need some structure and organization, routines and roles which shape and guide how they carry out self-care, productivity and leisure. They'll need the motor, process and communication interaction skills to be able to do those things. And ideally, they'll need a supportive environment to help them as well. So we're going to think about volition first of all. So as human beings, we have this inbuilt curiosity and need to be occupied. If you look at a toddler, a young baby, you don't need to motivate them to be curious, to explore the world around them. As soon as they can move, they're exploring, they're touching things, they're putting things in their mouths, they're just curious, they've got this innate drive to be doing things. And volition is responsible for determining how this innate drive for action is channeled in terms of the choices we make. It explains why we do what we do. It's what drives us. So the three components of volition, all of which influence our choices. So personal causation is one of the few bits of jargon that's managed to survive the various iterations of MOHO. But you kind of think about it, it's not quite as jargon as it sounds. Personal causation is to do with whether I can personally cause things to happen in the way that I want them to. So it's our sense of competence and our sense of effectiveness. So it's our kind of confidence and self-awareness. It's that whole ballpark. So if volition is what drives us to make the choices we do, how does personal causation affect our choices? If we're in a room and I had more time, I'd get you to bounce a few ideas around, but there's a bit more space for that later. We tend to spend, the answer I think is that we tend to spend more time doing things that we're competent at. And we tend to avoid things that we're not so good at. So I would love to be good at DIY, but tragically I'm not. So when things don't go to plan, I struggle to problem solve, I quickly get frustrated, and it doesn't make me feel very good about myself. So therefore, I don't choose to spend lots of my free time on DIY. And I think most of us tend to stay within our comfort zones, or at least near the edges of our comfort zones. A few of us actively enjoy throwing ourselves out of our comfort zones, but I reckon the majority of us operate within or near the edges of our comfort zones. And if you think about our service users, many of them will be experiencing a powerful sense of inadequacy. Having an illness or disability challenges your view of yourself as capable. And since this is a painful realization, it means that they're probably more likely to avoid challenging situations and rein the comfort zone in. So the second part of volition is values. So our values are our convictions about what's important and meaningful in life. So how do our values affect our choices? Well, if you've got clear values, they invoke a sense of obligation to act in ways that are consistent with those values. We feel compelled to act because we feel strongly about something. And they tend to instill a sense of purpose and drive. so that our effort is focused and channeled. And the converse is true. If we don't have strong values, we're more likely to lack purpose and direction and motivation. And again, an illness or disability can result in people having difficulty enacting their values. So obviously, a common value in our Western culture is employment. We are valuable if we work, and a lot of our service users will hold that value, but the illness or the disability is compromising their ability to enact that value. Third part of volition is our interests. So the things that we see as enjoyable and satisfying. I guess it's fairly obvious how our interests affect our choices. We don't need our arm twisted to do things that we enjoy. So to summarize volition, personal causation, values and interests comprise what I tend to call our unique volitional fingerprint, which determines our thoughts, our feelings and our decisions about engaging in occupations. And it explains why there are such fascinating variations in what people choose to do. So, quick straw poll, put your hand up, use the hand function if you like walking. Now, I'm not going to see this. I'll ask Joe to give me a rough sense about what proportion are we talking here. Put your hand up if you enjoy walking.
So numbers are going up. So it looks like 30, oh gosh, more, 35, 36 people.
36
37,
people.
oh, it's going up still. 39.
So significantly more than half, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, that's always the case. Whenever I ask this question, it's always the case. It's one of the most popular pastimes. Now, I don't understand walking. It's just not part of my volitional makeup. I've done a bit more of it during lockdown just for exercise purposes, but I don't enjoy it. It's a rubbish mode of transport. It's slow. Just for me, it's not part of my volitional makeup. But clearly for you, I've become interested in walkers because I'm just curious. So I've spoken to a lot of walkers, and you realise, of course, that people walk for different reasons. Some people walk because they want the exercise. Some people walk because it's special time with a friend or loved one. Some people just like nature and the outdoors, and probably a host of other reasons why people trudge around the countryside. And I think that's just it's the important principle, isn't it? That what will be underlying that is these three things: personal causation, values, and interest. They will be determining why you walk and why you engage in all sorts of other activities. So by and large, we tend to choose to do things either because we're good at them or they give us a sense of achievement, or at least they don't make us feel bad. They're within our comfort zone. Secondly, we choose to do things because we think they're important. And thirdly, we choose to do things simply because we enjoy them. And they're often interwoven. We want to be competent at doing the things that we value, and we tend to enjoy things that we do well, and vice versa. So this, of course, has major implications when we think about interventions with our service users. So whenever you suggest any course of action, so if you inpatient guys, if you suggest that someone comes along to an art group or anyone in the community, whenever you give some advice or something for someone to consider in terms of a way forward occupationally, they will probably unconsciously, but they will be asking themselves three questions. First of all, am I capable of doing this? Am I going to succeed at it? Is it realistic? Secondly, why should I do it? What's the point? How's this art group going to help me get out of this horrible ward? And that's not an insult to a ward. That might be what some people are thinking. Number three, am I going to get any pleasure or satisfaction from it? And I would suggest that if we can't tick at least one of those boxes, you're going to have engagement problems. You're not going to engage because you're not on the same volitional page as this person. So hopefully you can start to see why the concept of volition is just so useful. The better we understand why an individual is making the choices they are, the better placed we are to engage and enable them. I'm going to not pay as much attention to the others because I think they're a bit less complicated. Habituation, another bit of jargon that has survived down the years. So habituation is to do with the way we organise our behaviour into routines and patterns. It provides structure, consistency, and efficiency, which helps us to maintain our functioning over time. So habits refer to how we do things and how we spend our time. And they're generated by consistently doing the same thing until it becomes automatic. So your morning routine will be 20 plus tasks that you're fairly on autopilot for. They become habitual. You don't have to think about them too much. And that's the good thing about habits. They're efficient. They save time. The bad thing about habits, of course, is if you've drifted into unhealthy or unhelpful habits, they don't shift easily. So the second part of habituation is our roles. Habits structure time. Roles provide social structure and identity. When we adopt a role, we need to adopt the associated attributes and behaviours that go with the role. So roles carry expectations, and obviously the most tangible evidence of that is a job description, a list of expectations about what's involved in this role. But there's a number of unspoken rules that go with a number of other roles in our lives. You know, the role of a parent will come with it a certain range of expectations. A student will come with it a certain range of expectations. So habits and roles essentially form or comprise our lifestyle. Third part of volition is third part of the MOHO is the performance or the skills. So these are the physical, cognitive, and social skills which actually produce the action. But then so we've covered the things about the person. Volition, habituation, performance are to do with the person, but then the environment, the social and the physical environment exerts a very strong influence on volition, habituation, and performance. So if you're watching this webinar in the comfort of your own home, you've got a comfortable chair, it's nice and peaceful, you've got a cup of tea, you've got some nice snacks. Emma was saying she was just preparing some nice snacks for the presentation. I thought, flipping it, I wish I could have some nice snacks to nibble on while I'm talking. But if those things are in place, you're going to be much more attentive and engaged than if you're watching it in a cold, noisy office, or if you've got kids screaming in the background. So the environment provides both opportunities and resources, but it also provides demands and constraints. So occupation is motivated by volition, it's shaped and patterned by habituation, it's carried out using performance skills, and it's strongly influenced by the environment. So as occupational therapists, what we're trying to do is, first of all, identify which of these components are contributing to an individual's doing problems using assessment tools, and then enabling them to overcome these barriers. So I'm just going to pause briefly there and see if there's any questions. I can't see the chat, Joe. Is there any questions in the chat, or anyone want to quickly ask anything now?
There aren't any questions in the chat, but I'm not sure if anyone wants to ask a question, if they want to put their hand up or speak out.
Okay, let's move on. So how do we gather this information? How do we find out how someone is doing in terms of their volition, habituation, performance, and environment? Well, obviously that's where the assessment tools come in. So we're going to try our first breakout group now. So in your breakout rooms, you're going to be thinking of three questions. You're going to be thinking, which tools are you currently using? What do you find helpful about them or it? And what are the reservations or challenges that you have about using the tools? So we'll have fairly punchy this one, just about 10 minutes, just thinking about those three questions. So Joe's going to put you into your breakout groups now. Thank you.
Hi everyone. In terms of breakout rooms, this is a new feature on Teams, so we are trying it out. I have already assigned everyone to a breakout room based on where you're working. The most important thing is don't leave this chat, don't leave this meeting. And when you're in the breakout room, when we're finishing again, don't press the leave button, because I can manually bring people back in. If for whatever reason you do leave, just rejoin the meeting through your Outlook or your Teams, however you normally join a meeting. And any issues, I will drop in and out of the groups, so please let me know. So I'm going to press the button now, and you should get a 10-second countdown for you to be taken to your breakout rooms, and we'll see you when I press another button.
These 10 seconds are really awkward every time, aren't they?
Yeah, this is a bit. I'm also going to pause the recording.